There comes a moment in life when the noise of the world fades, when the constant demands for attention, approval, and recognition cease to matter. You realize that every chase, every desperate attempt to be seen or acknowledged, is born from a void within yourself. The philosopher does not look outward for validation. He does not measure his worth by the applause of strangers or the fleeting admiration of peers. True strength arises not from possession, not from power, not from the fleeting connections that dissolve at the first sign of adversity, but from the mastery of one's own mind and the unwavering discipline of the soul. It is in the quiet hours, when the night stretches long and uninterrupted, that the mind confronts its deepest shadows, its unspoken fears, and its unmet desires. You begin to see that the world will never give what only you can cultivate within. The ability to stand alone, to rely upon your own virtue, your own courage, your own reason, is the ultimate form of liberation. There is a distinct peace in no longer being in pursuit of what lies outside your control, for chasing brings exhaustion, dissatisfaction, and the subtle erosion of one's inner dignity. When you cultivate this solitude, this self-reliance, something remarkable occurs. You stop chasing altogether. The world's allure, with its constant temptations and distractions, loses its grip. You no longer feel compelled to perform, to please, or to conform. The energies that once scattered into external ambitions now gather inward, creating an inner gravity that draws the right circumstances and the right people toward you. Strength in solitude is magnetic. It does not seek, it receives. It does not plead, it is noticed. Like a stone placed in the center of a still pond, its presence ripples outward. Naturally, inevitably, the wise understand that attraction is the byproduct of self-mastery. When you refine your character, align your actions with reason, and act with integrity unshaken by the opinions of others, you cultivate a presence that is unspoken yet palpable, undeniable yet effortless. This is not arrogance, nor is it pride. It is simply the quiet assertion of virtue in its most authentic form. Those who have not reached this state will attempt to pull you into their chaos, to provoke reaction, to seek attention for themselves through the disturbance of your calm. The Stoic remains unmoved. Anger, frustration, and envy no longer hold dominion over the spirit. By standing firm in one's principles, by cultivating resilience and patience, you establish a silent authority that commands respect not through force, but through the integrity of presence. You learn to discern between what requires your effort and what is naturally drawn to your excellence. You become a beacon, a testament to the power of internal fortitude, and the world responds, not because you demand, but because you have become inherently valuable. Solitude, once feared as loneliness, transforms into a sanctuary of power. Within it your mind sharpens, your heart strengthens, and your soul becomes attuned to the rhythm of what is eternal, unchangeable, and true. And in this place you no longer wander in pursuit of others' approval. You no longer bend to fleeting desires that offer nothing lasting. You attract not because you chase, but because you embody something far greater, a life lived with wisdom, courage, and the serene confidence that arises from knowing you are enough, complete in yourself, and untouchable by the whims of a world that cannot see the depth of your quiet strength. Observe the world around you. Men and women rush endlessly, seeking what is outside their reach, tethered to illusions of significance. They barter their peace for fleeting attention, exchanging serenity for the chaos of desire. And yet, you begin to perceive a different rhythm, a subtler cadence of life that those immersed in chasing cannot hear. When you stand strong alone, your actions are no longer dictated by expectation. Every step is measured, deliberate, chosen with clarity of purpose rather than urgency or panic. The power of solitude lies not in isolation but in the reclamation of your own mind. Thoughts that once pulled you into comparison, envy, and restless striving are met with reason and transformed. You recognize the impermanence of applause and the emptiness of external affirmation. You learn to sit with discomfort, to embrace the silence, to confront what lies within without flinching. Here the invisible work begins. Strength is not announced with words, nor displayed through performance. It is cultivated in the quiet discipline of your habits, in the intentional mastery of your impulses, in the relentless pursuit of virtue. Every choice made with self-command compounds into a force that radiates outward. The world feels your presence not because you seek to dominate it, but because you carry an unshakable essence. People are drawn to this authenticity. The ones who matter are compelled not by your possessions or your rhetoric, but by the calm certainty that surrounds your being. And you understand deeply that this magnetism is not a reward. It is a reflection of what you have cultivated within. You have invested in yourself, in your principles, in the clarity of your purpose. You no longer react to every provocation or chase every distraction. Instead, you act from reason, anchored in values that cannot be swayed by whim or fear. In this quiet mastery, attraction becomes inevitable. Life flows toward you, opportunities arrive without forced effort, and relationships form not out of dependency but mutual resonance. Strength alone does not isolate. It elevates. It transforms solitude into sanctuary, distraction into focus, desire into discernment. And in this elevation you recognize the profound truth. When you cease chasing, the universe responds. It does not compete with your calm, it converges toward it. Your presence alone becomes the signal that the untrained eye cannot perceive, yet the discerning spirit cannot ignore. Every encounter, every opportunity, every subtle connection arises from the power of a mind disciplined, a soul unwavering, and a heart aligned with what is good, just, and true. This is the life of the Stoic, to stand firm, to master oneself, and in doing so, to draw the world, not through force, not through desperation, but through the magnetic force of quiet strength. Consider the nature of desire. Most of the world chases endlessly, believing that fulfillment exists in the possession of others, approval, in the accumulation of fleeting pleasures, or in the constant need to be noticed. And yet, those who cultivate inner strength recognize the futility of such pursuits. Power lies not in pursuit, but in presence. When you become steadfast in yourself, anchored in reason and virtue, the chaos around you ceases to command your attention. You move through life with a calm certainty, and in that calm you create a space that draws what is aligned with your character. Attraction is born not of manipulation or force, but of integrity. When your actions reflect the harmony between thought and deed, when your speech is measured, your choices deliberate, your intentions transparent, the world responds. People sense the quiet command of a mind unshaken, the subtle energy of a soul that does not bend to every gust of opinion or every wave of circumstance. And so the chase becomes irrelevant. You no longer expend energy trying to impress or win the favor of others, because you understand that their judgment cannot define your worth. You have cultivated the only opinion that truly matters, your own, informed by reason, experience, and the pursuit of excellence. Each day, each moment, offers an opportunity to deepen this inner sovereignty. Small actions, repeated with consistency, create a force that cannot be ignored. Discipline becomes magnetic, resilience becomes visible, presence becomes compelling. And in this process, the universe does not withhold, it aligns. Doors open, conversations flow, opportunities appear, not because you demanded them, but because your life has become a signal of value, integrity, and purpose. True strength is thus both a shield and a beacon. It protects you from the restless pull of external desire while simultaneously attracting what is authentic, meaningful, and enduring. The one who understands this does not feel loneliness in solitude. Rather, solitude becomes a sanctuary, a place where the mind sharpens, the heart grows resilient, and the spirit discovers its own infinite well of strength. And in this sanctuary, you realize an essential truth. To become powerful alone is not to withdraw from life. It is to refine it, to elevate it, and to embody a magnetism that no external pursuit can replicate. Those who chase may tire themselves endlessly, but those who cultivate inner power move through life effortlessly, drawing toward them exactly what belongs by virtue of alignment with their own unwavering presence. Look inward and notice the habits that have been quietly shaping your life. Most people live as if pulled by invisible strings, responding to the urgencies of the day without thought, surrendering their attention to distractions and ng presence for approval. The Stoic knows this path leads to exhaustion and inner emptiness. Strength begins when you reclaim your attention, when every thought is examined, every impulse questioned, and every choice guided by reason rather than impulse. Alone, you discover the subtle power of deliberate action, the quiet energy of a mind that does not scatter itself, the inner authority that refuses to bow to fleeting trends, gossip, or external pressures. This power is magnetic. It does not demand recognition, it quietly compels it. When your life is aligned with virtue, your presence itself speaks volumes. People feel it without words. Opportunities arrive because you have cultivated a life that resonates with honesty, resilience, and clarity. You begin to understand that attraction is not about the loud display of strength, but the invisible weight of consistent character. Like a tree growing in silence, rooted deep, its branches naturally extend to those who are drawn by its presence, not by the noise it makes. In this state, chasing becomes irrelevant. No longer are you seeking approval, attention, or validation. You act because your conscience is aligned, because your values guide you, and because the energy you release is deliberate and intentional. There is a profound serenity in this. You are no longer buffeted by every whim of the world. You are steady, you are intentional, and in your steadiness, life begins to respond. The universe does not conspire against the disciplined, it flows toward it. Doors open quietly, relationships form naturally, possibilities present themselves without frantic effort. Strength alone transforms life from struggle into flow. You stop exhausting yourself on pursuits that yield nothing enduring. You stop being influenced by chaos and instead become the anchor in every situation. And in this mastery, you notice another truth. Those who chase may seem busy, but they are weak. Those who stand alone may seem still, but they are invincible. The world begins to respect the silent force that acts with clarity, restraint, and unwavering purpose. Solitude becomes the crucible in which magnetism is forged. The more deeply you cultivate it, the more effortlessly the right people, the right opportunities, and the right circumstances are drawn toward you. This is the subtle, profound law of life. When you strengthen yourself alone, you cease chasing and everything meaningful begins to chase you. Consider the mind that has been trained to depend on others for satisfaction. It is restless, anxious, and never still. Yet when you cultivate inner resilience, you learn to meet yourself first, your thoughts, your fears, your ambitions, with clarity and patience. Strength is not in dominating others or forcing outcomes. It is in mastering your own reactions, in holding your composure when the world attempts to provoke you. Each moment you choose calm over agitation, reason over impulse, you build an invisible gravity. The presence of a disciplined mind is unmistakable. It is subtle, yet undeniable. People notice not because you speak loudly or perform dramatically, but because your steadiness contrasts sharply with the chaos around them. This is the quiet power that attraction brings. When you are whole, alone, when your worth is independent of others' acknowledgement, you radiate a magnetism that cannot be manufactured. Those who are drawn to you feel it instinctively. They recognize that your energy is not scattered, that your spirit is not restless, and that your actions are aligned with something larger than temporary desires. Life ceases to be a series of exhausting pursuits and becomes a reflection of your inner order. You begin to understand the difference between noise and value, between distraction, and opportunity. The world still hums with activity, still clamors for attention, yet you move through it like a river flowing around obstacles, unperturbed, inevitable, and quietly commanding every interaction, every choice, every opportunity that comes to you is filtered by this inner strength. You attract circumstances not by seeking them, not by pleading or performing, but by embodying a life of reason, virtue, and focus. And in this alignment, a profound liberation emerges. You are no longer at the mercy of the world's whims. You are no longer burdened by the fleeting judgments or the desires of others. You exist with clarity, with purpose, and with an authenticity that draws the right people, the right circumstances, and the right energy into your orbit. The one who understands this does not chase life. Life flows naturally toward them. And in this flow, the Stoic finds freedom, power, and the subtle satisfaction of a mind that has become its own sanctuary, untouchable and unshakable, yet deeply connected to the currents of life that matter most. There is a profound difference between longing and desiring. Longing looks outward, seeking fulfillment in the approval, attention, or possession of others. Desire, when guided by reason, looks inward, shaping the self before reaching outward. When you stand strong alone, you learn to distinguish these clearly. You no longer expend energy chasing what cannot serve your growth. Instead, your focus turns to cultivating virtues that anchor your life: patience, wisdom, courage, and integrity. Each day becomes a deliberate act of refinement. You sharpen your mind through reflection, fortify your character through challenge, and align your actions with purpose rather than impulse. In doing so, you create a quiet resonance that others sense instinctively. It is not the loud or the boastful who attract what is meaningful. It is the disciplined, the self-aware, the unshakable. Strength alone does not isolate, it elevates. The world begins to respond, not because you demand it, but because your presence commands attention effortlessly. The chaos that once disturbed you now passes like wind against stone, leaving you unmoved. Opportunities gravitate toward you naturally, relationships deepen without effort, and influence grows quietly, organically, because you have become a vessel of stability and virtue. The Stoic knows that the power of solitude is not measured by what you can gain from it, but by what it allows you to cultivate within. The more you refine yourself, the more the universe aligns with the integrity you radiate. Chasing becomes obsolete, attraction becomes inevitable. People, circumstances, and possibilities are drawn to your inner mastery as surely as light seeks the path of least resistance. And in this truth, freedom emerges. Freedom from the need for validation, freedom from external chaos, freedom from the subtle tyranny of desire unexamined. Alone, you discover that the world cannot diminish what you have built internally. Solitude, when embraced as a tool of self-mastery, becomes the foundation for influence, magnetism, and the serene authority that compels without coercion. The life of one who stands strong alone is not lonely. It is deliberate, powerful, and profoundly magnetic. You do not chase. You endure, you refine. And, in that refinement, the world naturally turns toward you. Observe the lives of those who constantly seek the applause of others. They move frantically, exhausted by expectation, weighed down by the fleeting opinions of strangers, and forever chasing a sense of worth that cannot be found outside themselves. Contrast this with the one who stands alone yet unwavering. There is a calm in their presence, a depth in their silence, a gravity in their gaze. They have discovered the subtle mastery of self, the power that comes from discipline, reflection, and the refusal to be swayed by the turbulence of the world. Solitude is not emptiness for them, it is the forge in which their character is tempered. Each challenge becomes a lesson, each setback a teacher, each quiet moment an opportunity to align mind and action with enduring values. This alignment creates an invisible authority. People are drawn not because it is demanded of them, but because it resonates naturally with the strength they perceive. Attraction flows from authenticity, from the unshakable conviction that comes when one's life is lived with purpose rather than performance. The Stoic knows that control over oneself is far more powerful than control over circumstances. When the mind is disciplined, the heart resilient, and the spirit grounded, the world ceases to dictate terms. You no longer expend your energy attempting to prove yourself to others, for you have already proven your worth to yourself. This internal sovereignty radiates outward. Opportunities emerge without forcing them. Conversations unfold without manipulation. Relationships deepen without pretense. And the quiet power of your presence compels attention naturally, effortlessly, and undeniably. To stand alone is not to be isolated. It is to become a beacon. The light you cultivate within draws toward you all that aligns with reason, virtue, and strength. Chasing becomes obsolete, for attraction is the natural consequence of refinement, integrity, and the serene command of one's own life. In mastering solitude, in cultivating the invisible power of self-reliance, you transform existence from a pursuit into a magnetism. You act deliberately, respond with clarity, and live with a calm authority that the restless world cannot mimic. And in this state you finally understand the strongest life is not the one that pleads for recognition, but the one that embodies worth so fully that the world is compelled to follow. There is a subtle power in living intentionally, in choosing your path without deference to the whims of others. Most people surrender to circumstance, allowing the tides of opinion, gossip, and expectation to dictate their every step. Yet, the one who cultivates inner strength alone moves with deliberate calm. Every thought is weighed, every action considered, every desire examined through the lens of reason. In this clarity, the need to chase vanishes. The restless energy once spent on impressing or seeking approval is redirected inward, toward growth, reflection, and mastery of the self. Here, solitude is not punishment, it is sanctuary. In this sanctuary, your mind becomes a sculptor of character, your heart a reservoir of patience, and your soul a wellspring of quiet confidence. People sense it without words. They are drawn to the calm authority that arises from a life lived with purpose and integrity. Opportunities find their way to you naturally. Circumstances align with your refined energy, and connections form effortlessly. Strength alone does not isolate, it radiates. The more firmly you stand on your own principles, the more the world bends toward your presence. This is the essence of attraction. It does not demand, it does not plead, it does not perform. It simply exists, undeniable and magnetic, as a reflection of inner mastery. When your actions are guided by reason rather than impulse, when your character is consistent even in the face of adversity, life itself begins to respond. You become the center of your own gravity, a force unseen yet deeply felt. Others may chase endlessly, but you no longer need to. You act from alignment, attract from authenticity, and influence through quiet, unshakable authority. And in this way you discover freedom. The freedom to live without expectation, to move without distraction, and to attract what truly matters simply by being steadfast, deliberate, and fully yourself. Strength is born in moments unseen, in choices that go unnoticed by the world but shape the soul irrevocably. Most people seek recognition for every action, validation for every decision, yet the one who stands alone understands that true power is silent. It is cultivated in the mastery of thought, the restraint of impulse, and the unwavering commitment to what is. Right. Solitude becomes a teacher, revealing the layers of fear, doubt, and weakness that have been quietly tolerated. You confront them, not with anger or despair, but with reasoned patience and deliberate action. Each challenge becomes an opportunity to refine courage, each failure a lesson in resilience, each moment of quiet a chance to fortify the spirit. When this internal work is done, the world begins to respond. Opportunities, relationships, and influence arrive, not because they are chased, but because they are naturally drawn to the energy of a disciplined mind. The presence of someone who has mastered themselves is unmistakable. It commands attention not through words, not through spectacle, but through consistency, integrity, and the calm certainty that comes from living aligned with one's values. In this state, external chaos cannot disturb you. Opinions, envy, and manipulation pass like wind over stone, leaving you unmoved. And in this stillness, you attract what truly belongs to you. You no longer expend energy pursuing fleeting recognition or empty validation. You exist as a magnet of virtue, patience, and wisdom, and the world bends toward this energy. Those who chase will continue to chase, but you, having cultivated strength alone, need only stand. Presence alone becomes influence, discipline becomes allure, and solitude transforms into the most powerful tool for shaping your life. Here, in the mastery of yourself, you find freedom. Freedom from fear, freedom from distraction, and freedom from the subtle tyranny of the world's incessant demands. You stop chasing, you begin attracting. And in that transformation, life itself responds to the quiet, unshakable force that you have become. Power is not in what you command externally, but in the mastery of your inner world. Most people live as if the world owes them attention, approval, or favor, yet he one who is strong alone understands a different law. Influence flows from self-control, not from demand. Each day offers an opportunity to refine this power, to confront impulses, to question fleeting desires, and to replace reaction with reason. In solitude, the mind sharpens, the heart strengthens, and clarity emerges. You begin to see that the energy spent chasing validation is wasted. When you stand firm, grounded in principle, the world responds in ways that no effort of pursuit could achieve. Strength alone attracts. People, opportunities, and circumstances naturally gravitate toward those who embody calm, discipline, and integrity. This attraction is not coercive, it is subtle, irresistible, and enduring. Others may rush, scramble, and exhaust themselves in pursuit of recognition, yet you move with deliberate intent, guided by your own standards rather than external pressures. The quiet mastery of self becomes your signature, a force that communicates value without words. Solitude ceases to be a burden, it becomes a sanctuary in which your presence is refined, your judgment deepened, and your character fortified. Every challenge faced alone adds to the invisible magnetism that draws what aligns with your strength. You learn to distinguish between what is trivial and what is essential, between fleeting desires and lasting value. Life, once a series of endless pursuits, transforms into a natural flow directed by the integrity and consistency of your actions. To stand alone is to stand empowered. To stop chasing is to discover that the world itself will reach for you. And in this quiet, deliberate power lies the essence of the Stoics' truth, freedom, influence, and fulfillment are not taken. They are cultivated within. The moment you stop measuring yourself by others, a profound transformation begins. Most lives are consumed by comparison, the subtle poison of envy, and the relentless desire for approval. Yet when you cultivate the power to stand alone, you step out of this invisible trap. Your mind becomes a fortress, your will an anchor, your purpose unmistakable. In solitude, the distractions of the world lose their grip. You learn to act with intentionality, to speak with clarity, and to carry yourself with the quiet authority of one who has mastered the self. Strength alone is magnetic. It does not demand attention, it draws it naturally. People, opportunities, and circumstances align, not because they are forced, but because the energy you emit resonates with discipline, integrity, and calm certainty. Life, once a chaotic scramble, transforms into a deliberate unfolding, where each choice contributes to your growth rather than your exhaustion. You no longer chase fleeting recognition or hollow validation, for you have cultivated a source of power that exists entirely within. Challenges no longer intimidate, setbacks no longer deter, and distractions no longer scatter your focus. Instead, you operate from a place of equilibrium, responding with reason, patience, and deliberate action. And in this space you realize an undeniable truth: those who pursue tirelessly are trapped by their own need, while those who cultivate strength alone are followed by the currents of life itself. Attraction, influence, and respect are no longer things to seek. They become a natural consequence of the quiet mastery you have forged. To stand alone is to live aligned with purpose. To stop chasing is to discover the effortless flow that comes when inner strength becomes your guide. Most people surrender to habit, following the loudest voices, the flashiest trends, and the fleeting promises of approval. Yet, the one who stands alone develops a quiet independence that the world cannot sway. Each decision is deliberate, each action intentional, each thought examined through the lens of reason. In this self-discipline lies magnetism. You no longer need to chase recognition because your presence carries weight on its own. The energy you emit, steady and composed, draws the right people, opportunities, and circumstances toward you naturally. Solitude, once feared as emptiness, becomes a place of refinement, a forge in which patience is tempered, courage is strengthened, and clarity is sharpened. Challenges no longer rattle you, setbacks no longer diminish you, and the chaos of the world cannot pull you off course. Life begins to align with the integrity of your actions rather than the fleeting demands of others. This is the essence of attraction. It is born from internal mastery, not from external performance. The one who cultivates strength alone radiates a presence that is unmistakable. People feel it without understanding why. Doors open without forcing them. Influence flows without manipulation. And in this calm, deliberate power, freedom is revealed, freedom from the opinions of others, freedom from the restless chase, and freedom to live aligned with truth and virtue. When you no longer pursue what cannot serve your growth, you step into the flow of life itself, and the world begins to respond to the quiet authority of a soul that has mastered itself. The power of solitude is often misunderstood. Many fear it, believing that standing alone is synonymous with weakness, loneliness, or insignificance. Yet, the Stoic sees it differently. True strength emerges when you cease relying on the shifting tides of opinion, when the applause of the crowd no longer dictates your worth, and when you learn to trust the steady compass of your own reason. In these moments of deliberate aloneness, your mind begins to clarify. Thoughts that once scattered your energy now settle into focus. Emotions that once controlled your actions are met with discernment and calm. You learn to differentiate between what is essential and what is trivial, between fleeting desire and lasting value. Each day becomes an opportunity to cultivate discipline, to speak with intention, to act with integrity, and to carry yourself with the quiet authority of one who answers only to their own principles. And as you grow in this mastery, you notice a subtle shift in the world around you. Life begins to respond to the energy you emit. Relationships form naturally with those who resonate with your steadiness. Opportunities appear not because you chase them, but because the resonance of your presence attracts what aligns with your discipline and virtue. Strength alone is magnetic, not boastful, calm, not reactive, steady, not frantic. When others rush, scramble, and exhaust themselves in pursuit of recognition or fleeting gains, you remain anchored. You are no longer at the mercy of the chaos of the world. Every challenge you face is met with reasoned patience. Every setback becomes a teacher, every silent moment a chance to refine your inner power. And in this steadfastness, a profound freedom emerges, freedom from the restless need to impress, freedom from the subtle manipulation of expectation, freedom from the shallow currents of desire that sway so many. Attraction, influence, and respect flow naturally, not because they are forced, but because the invisible weight of integrity, self-discipline, and inner strength draws them inevitably toward you. The one who has mastered this does not chase the world chases them. And in this realization you understand the greatest paradox of power: the less you pursue, the more you command; the less you depend, the more you attract; the more grounded you become, the more life flows toward you effortlessly. In standing alone, you have discovered not isolation but sovereignty, not absence but influence, not scarcity but abundance of presence. The path to true strength is rarely visible to those who live for the approval of others. Most people expend their energy chasing recognition, comparing themselves to everyone around them, and measuring their worth by fleeting applause or the passing admiration of strangers. Yet, those who stand alone discover a different law. Strength is cultivated in silence, refined through patience, and demonstrated not through performance, but through presence. When you commit to mastering yourself, you begin to see the subtle ways the world attempts to control you, the demands of others, the pull of fleeting trends, the constant distraction of opinions, and in facing these, you learn to respond with reason rather than impulse, with calm rather than agitation, and with deliberate intention rather than reaction. Solitude is no longer a void. It becomes a sanctuary where the mind sharpens, the heart strengthens, and the soul attains clarity. In this sanctuary you confront your deepest fears, acknowledge your unspoken doubts, and choose virtue over convenience. Every habit formed intentionally, every thought examined carefully, every action aligned with reason compounds into an invisible force that radiates outward. The world begins to respond, not because you demand, perform, or chase, but because you carry a presence that is unshakable and magnetic. Those who are drawn to this energy sense authenticity, consistency, and quiet power. They do not question it, they feel it instinctively. And as life aligns with the integrity you embody, you no longer expend precious energy chasing validation or recognition. You act from a place of mastery, and in that mastery you attract opportunities, influence, and meaningful connections effortlessly. Challenges no longer intimidate you, setbacks no longer derail you. The storms of the world pass like wind over stone, leaving you unmoved, grounded in the certainty of your own strength. This is the paradox of power. The less you chase, the more life converges toward you. The more self-reliant you become, the more magnetic you are to what truly matters. Solitude transforms from a feared state into a source of authority, influence, and freedom. You discover that the strongest life is not one of frantic pursuit, but one of deliberate cultivation. You become a beacon, not by force, not by pretense, but by embodying the steady, disciplined, and unshakable presence of a soul that has chosen mastery over chaos. And in this presence, the world begins to follow, drawn irresistibly to the gravity you have forged through patience, reflection, and unwavering adherence to truth. There is a quiet revolution that occurs when a person learns to rely entirely on themselves. The world, with its endless noise, opinions, and distractions, no longer wields power over you. Most people live in constant pursuit, chasing approval, chasing recognition, chasing fleeting pleasures, yet they remain unfulfilled, exhausted, and perpetually anxious. True strength is different. It begins in solitude, where the mind has space to reflect, the heart has room to fortify, and the spirit can discern what is essential from what is trivial. Alone you confront your own limitations without shame, without evasion, and without complaint. Every flaw, fear, and hesitation becomes an opportunity for deliberate growth. You cultivate patience where once there was impulsivity, courage where once there was doubt, and clarity where once there was confusion. As this inner mastery develops, the world begins to respond, not because you demand it, not because you seek it, but because the energy you exude resonates naturally with discipline, integrity, and wisdom. Strength alone is magnetic. It does not force attention or demand respect, it draws it effortlessly. You no longer expend precious energy attempting to impress or prove yourself to others, because your worth is now anchored internally. Opportunities, relationships, and influence find you without frantic effort. Challenges no longer intimidate, setbacks no longer deter, and the chaos of life cannot scatter your focus. You act deliberately, speak intentionally, and carry yourself with a calm authority that cannot be fabricated. Solitude, once feared as emptiness, becomes the crucible in which your character is forged. The more deeply you cultivate self-reliance, the more the world aligns with your presence. Those who chase endlessly will never grasp this subtle law. The less you pursue, the more life flows toward you. The one who stands strong alone no longer bends to the expectations of the crowd, no longer submits to external pressures, no longer wastes energy on validation. You have discovered freedom, the freedom to act with clarity, to attract what is authentic, and to command influence not through force, but through the quiet, unwavering authority of self-mastery. And in this freedom, life itself begins to flow in harmony with your strength, bringing toward you exactly what aligns with the disciplined, resilient, and unshakable presence you have become. The essence of real power lies not in domination, control, or the fleeting validation of others, but in the mastery of your own mind and the deliberate cultivation of your character. In these moments of reflection, you confront your weaknesses, temper your impulses, and sharpen your clarity. The distractions of the world lose their authority over your mind. You act not from fear or desire, but from reason and deliberate choice. Every step, every thought, every word becomes intentional. And as this inner mastery grows, a remarkable phenomenon occurs. Attraction replaces pursuit. You no longer chase what cannot serve your growth. Instead, the world responds naturally to the energy you radiate. Strength alone is magnetic. It is subtle, yet undeniable. People, opportunities, and circumstances gravitate toward those who embody discipline, patience, and clarity of purpose. No performance is required, no words are needed. The steady presence of one who has mastered themselves commands attention effortlessly. Challenges cease to destabilize you, setbacks no longer deter you, and chaos cannot disrupt the order you have cultivated within. Life begins to flow in harmony with the power you have built internally. Every interaction becomes an extension of your deliberate presence. Every outcome aligns with the principles you uphold. You move through the world anchored, unwavering, and intentional, and the energy you radiate draws toward you exactly what aligns with your virtue, resilience, and focus. To stand strong alone is to discover a freedom that the restless never know, freedom from approval, freedom from distraction, freedom from the endless chase. And in this freedom, attraction becomes inevitable, influence becomes natural, and life itself bends toward the unshakable presence you have forged through patience, reflection, and unwavering self-mastery. Most people spend their lives tethered to the opinions, expectations, and fleeting judgments of others, exhausting themselves in pursuit of recognition or approval. Yet, the one who stands strong alone understands a different law. Power is cultivated within through discipline, reflection, and the deliberate mastery of thought and action. Solitude, once feared, becomes a sanctuary where clarity emerges. Every impulse is examined, every desire weighed, and every fear confronted with reason. In this practice, the mind strengthens, the heart steadies, and the spirit becomes unshakable. You no longer act from compulsion, anxiety, or the need to impress. Each choice is deliberate, each word intentional, and each action aligned with virtue and purpose. And in this alignment, a remarkable phenomenon occurs. The world begins to respond. Opportunities arise, relationships deepen, and influence grows, not because it is sought, but because the presence of someone who has mastered themselves is magnetic. Strength alone does not demand attention, it radiates it effortlessly. Those who chase endlessly remain trapped in motion without direction, while you move with deliberate intent, anchored in principle. Challenges no longer intimidate, setbacks no longer deter, and the chaos of the world cannot scatter your focus. The one who is self-reliant becomes a center of gravity for the currents of life that truly matter. Attraction becomes inevitable, not through force, but through the invisible energy of consistency, integrity, and calm authority. You realize the greatest paradox of power: the less you chase, the more life converges toward you. The less you depend, the more people and opportunities are drawn to your presence. The steadier you are, the more the world aligns with your unshakable core. In this mastery, freedom emerges. Freedom from the opinions of others, freedom from distraction, freedom from the restless need to prove yourself. And in this freedom you find not isolation but influence, not emptiness but abundant presence, not weakness but a silent, irresistible force that life cannot ignore. True mastery begins when a person stops measuring their worth by the standards of others. Most live in a constant state of pursuit, seeking praise, chasing recognition, and endlessly comparing themselves to the shifting benchmarks of society. Yet, the one who stands alone discovers a different principle. Strength is cultivated within, quietly, deliberately, and without reliance on external validation. In solitude, the mind becomes a laboratory for self-examination, the heart a ground for fortifying patience, and the spirit a sanctuary for resilience. You confront your weaknesses, temper your impulses, and align your actions with enduring values rather than transient desires. This practice, repeated daily, shapes an invisible force that begins to influence the world around you. The presence of someone who has mastered themselves is unmistakable. It is calm, steady, and magnetic, drawing attention and respect effortlessly, not through demand, but through the quiet authority of self-discipline. Life begins to flow differently. Opportunities arrive without pursuit, relationships form without pretense, and influence emerges naturally, guided by integrity of your actions rather than the whims of circumstance. Challenges are met with reason, setbacks are transformed into lessons, and distractions no longer fragment your energy. Strength alone does not isolate you, it elevates you. You move with deliberate intent, carrying an invisible weight of discipline, clarity, and virtue that resonates with those who are attuned to it. The paradox is simple yet profound. The less you chase, the more life converges toward you. The less you depend on others, the more attraction becomes inevitable. Solitude, when embraced as a tool of refinement, transforms from a state of emptiness into a source of immense power. You discover freedom, the freedom to act according to reason, the freedom to cultivate authenticity, and the freedom to draw toward yourself what aligns with your character. The stronger you grow in this way, the more effortless life becomes. You no longer struggle to compel the world to notice, the world notices you. You no longer scramble to prove yourself, proof exists in your presence. You no longer chase, you attract. And in this serene, deliberate power, you understand the essence of Stoic mastery. The greatest influence emerges not from pursuit, but from the quiet, steadfast cultivation of self. The greatest strength emerges not from the approval of others, but from the disciplined cultivation of your own character. Most people expend their energy chasing what they cannot control, the opinions of strangers, the fleeting attention of the crowd, the transient rewards of shallow pursuits. Yet, the one who stands alone begins to perceive a different reality. Solitude is no longer a punishment. It becomes a laboratory for mastery, a place where the mind can examine itself, where the heart can fortify its courage, and where the spirit can find clarity amidst chaos. In these moments, impulses are observed rather than acted upon, fears are confronted with reason, and every choice is aligned with principle rather than desire. The energy once scattered on external validation is redirected inward, forming an invisible magnetism that the world cannot resist. Strength alone commands attention without shouting, influence without coercion, and respect without demand. Opportunities, relationships, and circumstances begin to converge toward you naturally, drawn by the consistency, calm, and clarity of your presence. You no longer chase the current. Teeth of life begin to follow. Challenges become instruments of refinement, setbacks transform into lessons, and chaos is met with steady resolve. The more deeply you cultivate this inner authority, the more effortless attraction becomes. Life responds to the gravity of one who has learned to stand firm alone. You no longer depend on applause to validate your actions. Your worth is anchored internally, unshakable by the fluctuations of the outside world. Solitude, when embraced fully, becomes a crucible in which resilience, patience, and insight are forged. In this state, freedom emerges, the freedom to act deliberately, the freedom to align with truth, and the freedom to draw toward yourself what resonates with your character and purpose. Those who chase endlessly will always remain restless, but the one who has mastered themselves moves with deliberate intent, radiates invisible authority, and experiences the subtle yet undeniable law of life. The less you pursue, the more the world comes to you. And in this profound equilibrium, you realize that the power of standing strong alone is not isolation. It is sovereignty, influence, and the quiet magnetism that shapes your life without force, without noise, and without compromise. There is a profound difference between those who chase and those who attract. The majority of people expend their lives running after recognition, approval, or fleeting pleasures, always seeking something external to validate their worth. Yet the one who has learned to cultivate strength alone discovers a different rhythm. Life begins to flow toward them, effortlessly and naturally. Solitude is no longer emptiness. It becomes the sanctuary in which the mind sharpens, the heart strengthens, and the spirit becomes unshakable. Every thought is examined, every emotion observed, and every action measured against the standard of reason and virtue. In this state, the restless pull of the world loses its grip. You act deliberately, speak with intention, and move through life with a steady, commanding presence. Strength alone does not need to advertise itself. It radiates quietly, compelling attention and respect without demand. Opportunities, relationships, and meaningful experiences are drawn to this energy, not because they are pursued, but because the invisible force of discipline, integrity, and consistency exudes naturally. Challenges that once caused fear now serve as teachers. Setbacks that once discouraged now become lessons. The chaos of the world passes over you like wind across stone, leaving you unmoved, anchored, and intentional. The paradox is subtle but undeniable. Those who relentlessly chase will always be exhausted, while those who stand firm, refined, and self-reliant will find the currents of life converging toward them. Freedom emerges in this mastery, the freedom to act according to principle, to speak according to truth, and to attract what aligns with your cultivated presence. Solitude transforms from fear into power, from isolation into magnetism. You discover that the greatest influence is never forced, it is drawn from the quiet, steady cultivation of self. To stand alone is to wield a presence that the world cannot ignore, to move with purpose that cannot be disrupted, and to attract effortlessly all that resonates with the discipline, clarity, and unshakable strength you have forged within. The strength of a person who stands alone is not loud or ostentatious. It is quiet, subtle, and profound, like the stillness of a lake that reflects the sun with perfect clarity. Most people spend their lives in pursuit, chasing attention, seeking approval, and exhausting themselves in endless comparison. Yet when you cultivate self-reliance, a remarkable shift occurs. The need to chase dissolves, replaced by the natural attraction that radiates from internal mastery. Solitude becomes your teacher. In its stillness, you confront every hidden fear, examine every fleeting impulse, and cultivate a mind that is sharp, calm, and the chaos of the world no longer dictates your actions. Instead, your decisions are deliberate, your words intentional, and your presence commanding without effort. Strength alone carries its own authority. It draws people, opportunities, and experiences naturally, because the energy of a disciplined, self-aware mind cannot go unnoticed. Challenges that once caused panic or despair now serve as instruments of growth. Setbacks that once discouraged now illuminate lessons that strengthen resilience. Each moment of quiet reflection compounds into an invisible power that shapes not only your life, but also the lives of those around you. This is the paradox of mastery. The less you pursue, the more life flows toward you. The less you depend, the more attraction becomes inevitable. You no longer act to impress or gain validation. Your worth is established internally, anchored in virtue, patience, and deliberate action. The currents of life begin to align with the energy you emit. Freedom arises, the freedom to act without fear, to move without distraction, and to attract without effort. You stop chasing people, situations, and fleeting desires because your presence, your clarity, and your cultivated strength are enough to draw what is right to you. And in this realization, you understand the Stoic truth: the strongest life is not one of pursuit, but one of deliberate cultivation. The one who stands alone becomes magnetic, unshakable, and influential, not through force, but through the subtle, undeniable power of mastery over self. There is a profound freedom in learning to rely solely on yourself. Most people live in constant distraction, caught in the pull of others' opinions, the noise of social expectations, and the endless pursuit of superficial validation. Yet, the one who cultivates strength alone experiences a different reality. Solitude becomes a sanctuary, a place where the mind can reflect, the heart can fortify, and the spirit can cultivate clarity. In this sacred space, every thought is examined, every emotion observed, and every action measured against the standard of reason rather than impulse. The energy once wasted on chasing approval is now invested in refining character, strengthening patience, and deepening resilience. And as this inner mastery grows, a quiet magnetism emerges. Life begins to respond naturally. Opportunities present themselves without force, relationships deepen without pretense, and influence flows without manipulation. Strength alone is subtle yet undeniable. It does not demand attention, it commands it effortlessly. Challenges that once threatened now serve as instruments of growth. Setbacks that once disheartened now illuminate lessons, and the chaos of the external world passes over you like wind across stone. The paradox is clear: the less you chase, the more the currents of life converge toward you. The less you seek validation, the more people and circumstances are drawn to your presence. Solitude transforms from isolation into power, from stillness into magnetism, and from reflection into sovereignty. You no longer act to impress or prove yourself. Your presence alone is sufficient. You have discovered freedom, the freedom to act with clarity, to live according to principle, and to attract what resonates with the discipline, wisdom, and integrity you have forged within. Those who chase endlessly will always feel the burden of pursuit, while the one who stands strong alone experiences the effortless law of attraction. Life bends toward their unwavering presence, responding to the invisible gravity of self-mastery. And in this truth, you realize that real power is not in chasing, not in performing, not in appealing to others, but in the deliberate cultivation of your own mind, heart, and soul. The one who has learned to stand alone knows a truth few understand. The pursuit of others' approval is a trap, a subtle form of slavery that drains energy, obscures judgment, and stifles growth. Most people are bound by the need to be liked, admired, and accepted, constantly moving to satisfy invisible standards and fleeting expectations. Yet, when you cultivate strength alone, a transformation occurs. Solitude ceases to be emptiness and becomes a crucible for mastery. In this space, every thought is scrutinized, every fear confronted, and every desire weighed against the measure of reason. You act not to please, not to impress, but in alignment with your own principles and values. Here, power is forged quietly, invisibly, and inevitably. As you refine your character in this way, a natural magnetism emerges. Life begins to respond, not because it is forced, but because your presence, grounded in discipline and virtue, resonates with an undeniable authority. Opportunities, relationships, and circumstances begin to converge toward you effortlessly, drawn to the consistency, patience, and integrity that you embody. Challenges that once intimidated now sharpen your resolve. Setbacks that once discouraged now reveal lessons hidden in adversity. Distractions that once scattered your attention now bounce harmlessly off the foundation you have built within. The paradox is profound. The less you chase, the more life flows toward you. The less you seek approval, the more attraction becomes inevitable. Strength alone is not loud, boastful, or performative. It is calm, composed, and magnetic. You move with deliberate intent, speak with clarity, and act with reason. Solitude transforms into a sanctuary of freedom, where you no longer depend on external validation, and where your influence emerges naturally through the quiet mastery of self. Those who chase endlessly remain restless, but the one who stands strong alone discovers that attraction is the natural consequence of integrity, patience, and unwavering presence. Life bends to the energy you have cultivated internally, and in this truth, the Stoic finds the ultimate liberation, the freedom to act deliberately, the power to attract effortlessly, and the unshakable certainty that real strength is forged within, not borrowed from the world around you. Look closely, and you will see that the life you chase through endless distraction, fleeting recognition, and the pull of others' expectations is not the life meant for you. True strength is not borrowed from applause. It is built silently, patiently, and deliberately within. When you cultivate this strength alone, a remarkable transformation takes place. The compulsive need to chase dissolves, and in its place arises an effortless magnetism. Life begins to respond to your presence, to your clarity, and to the unshakable authority of a mind disciplined by reason and a spirit tempered by resilience. Solitude, once feared, becomes the forge of mastery. In its quiet, your impulses are observed, your doubts confronted, and your values reaffirmed. Each moment of reflection compounds into a power that cannot be manufactured, mimicked, or borrowed. You stand anchored, unwavering, deliberate, and calm. The world begins to bend naturally to your energy. Opportunities arrive without force, influence flows without manipulation, and people are drawn to your presence, not because you demand it, but because the force of your cultivated character radiates irresistibly. Challenges no longer deter, setbacks are embraced as teachers, distractions are met with patience and discernment. You realize the paradox of life. The less you chase, the more the currents of opportunity, respect, and meaningful connection converge toward you. Strength alone is magnetic, influence is effortless, and freedom is inevitable. You no longer depend on the fleeting validation of others. You act in alignment with your principles, and the world responds. And now, as you take these truths into your life, remember this: your journey of self-mastery does not end here. It only grows deeper, richer, and more powerful with each day you dedicate to discipline, reflection, and deliberate action. If this resonates with you, drop a comment below sharing your thoughts, experiences, or breakthroughs, and make sure to subscribe to Stoicism Notebook to continue your journey into the timeless wisdom of the Stoics. Together, we will explore, reflect, and grow stronger, one principle at a time. Your presence here is the first step toward attracting the life you are meant to lead. Stand firm, cultivate your inner strength, and watch as the world naturally aligns with the unshakable power you have built within.